Hey, welcome into the Irish NFL show. It is week 9 of the NFL season. If you're listening to this, you're getting ready for week 9 Sunday in the NFL, presented by Cassidy Travel. Delighted to welcome in Colin Cronin. Welcome back, Brian O'Leary. Colin, first off, how's the form?
All good. Difficult to believe that we're going after this weekend. Will be beyond the halfway mark of the season. It tells you just how quickly it goes, and a season full of surprises thus far. I think we will see one or two more on Sunday.
Brian, welcome back in. How are you getting on?
Thanks, guys. I'm back from my mini boy. Is that what they call it in the NFL, where you're not officially on a bye week? Giants and Broncos on a bye week this week. Both having had differing results last weekend, but as Colin has alluded to, there's some cracking games this weekend, and genuinely I've gone back and forth on quite a few in terms of what my selections are. Be interested to see how many we agree with this evening.
And at the time of recording, it's a Thursday, and I am going to do this new thing tonight. I've got like a klaxon here. A vet hit klaxon. We're locking everything in tonight. So, yeah, we're going to lock our picks in, and if Ryan Tannehill suddenly starts on Sunday, we're locking them in. We're just going to gamble and go for it. I actually didn't realise the Giants were on a bye week, Brian. It's one of those weeks where there's a few teams on and off, but they're only, and we'll talk about this down the stretch, there's only 2 games in a 9 o'clock window, which is going to be fun.
First weekend where there's actually six teams on a bye. It's the most in terms of teams not playing throughout the course of the past few weeks when the bye weeks came into action. So it kind of explains to a large extent why there's only 2 games in that kind of 9 o'clock window on Sunday evening.
Welcome into everybody watching. Welcome into everybody on the podcast. You're all very, very welcome. Great to have everyone along for week 9 of the season. We're going to start off with the first game we're going to look at, which is the 4-3 LA Chargers going up against the 4-4 Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. Colin, this is the game. At this point in the season, when you're trying to find form, when you're trying to get a run together, it's a really important game for both teams. Broncos in the West on a bye week, Chiefs playing the Titans, and the Raiders having to go to Jacksonville. The Chargers need to take advantage of this game as well.
Yeah, this is one of those games where if you, before the season started, I think people would have thought, this should be the Chargers coming in here possibly much better than 4-3 and red hot favorites against a Falcons team who were expected to struggle, but that is not how it has played out thus far. For the Chargers, it's the same old problems. Unfortunately, Justin Herbert is Justin Herbert, but they don't have the receiving talent that due to injuries in part, but also they lack a real speedster. Keenan Allen is down now with a hamstring injury, which has come up again in the bye week, and they can't stop the run. And that is once again a real issue for the Chargers. If there is to be, I suppose, something that should really concern the Falcons, it's the fact that NFL teams are 0-7 this season in their first game after facing the Panthers. Nobody who has played the Panthers has been able to win a game afterwards. Doesn't matter whether you beat the Panthers, doesn't matter whether you lose to the Panthers. Once you play the Panthers, you lose the week after. Oh, and it doesn't matter if you're on a bye, it still carries over. So that is an interesting thing to keep an eye on, I think. I think the Falcons will cause all sorts of problems for this Chargers team. I think the Chargers without Keenan Allen are much lesser of an attacking threat. I think having Cordarrelle Patterson back is a huge boost to this Falcons team. And if I was, to pick it purely on where I think it'll go, I would go with the Falcons. That kind of mini curse is the thing that gives me pause. I just think the Chargers have been so cursed on with injuries on all sides of the ball. It doesn't look like, from what I'm hearing, Joey Bosa will be back, although he is week to week, I hear. but no Bosa, no Keenan Allen, and Justin Herbert playing with banged up ribs. I'm going to say that the Chargers are still a couple of weeks away from getting their season back on track, and I'll go with the Falcons in this one.
Get that Claxton in there going, Michael, already early doors in this week's show. The tale of two former Oregon quarterbacks, one with little expectation going into the season and one with so much expectation. One is delivering, you would say, bearing in mind what the expectation was for the Falcons. The other, for me, isn't delivering. You would probably put that down to the amount of injuries. Mike Williams is supposed to be a speedster, as Colin alludes to, in terms of they haven't got one. He's out for the foreseeable. I said on the show a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about this offense, Keenan Allen is one bang away from being out again. Well, there we are, he's out again. So it doesn't come as a surprise. I was looking at the stats today on the running game. Like Patterson, who's been out for 3 weeks, has 340 yards and 300 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. And Eckler, who's the most efficient runner for the Chargers, has 380 yards. He's only 40 yards more, and he's played 4 more games. And it just goes to show where this Chargers offense is for me. They're relying on players such as Carter, Palmer, Everett at tight end, who seems to want to get out of games quickly as he's in there after he does a catch on a particular play. I think this is a welcome relief for the running game of the Falcons to have Patterson come back, because they're going against one of the worst running defense in the league. And I'm with Colin. I'm siding with the Falcons here. I'm not going to buy into this course. So let's put it down as the Halloween course, and that's gone now. The Falcons, for me, will find a way on Sunday, like they did last Sunday, to get over the line and go 5-4 and stay top of the division. Hard to believe.
Mark is picking the Falcons this weekend. That's Mark C. It's pretty easy for me. This is lock of the week for me, lads. Falcons had the second worst defense. They gave up nearly 420 yards a game, and they're the 4th worst in passing yards per game. So I'm picking the Chargers -8 on the handicap. And I love already how we're completely off. This is nuts. I mean, like, they've got plenty. I wouldn't say Justin Herbert is underperforming. I think the people around him are. I think Staley really needs to improve, but no, I mean, the Chargers are winning this game easily on Sunday, easily. But nice. I mean, at least we're all not on the same page. Everyone has picked the. Sorry, go on ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, in terms of underperform, maybe that is a bit rash of me to say that, but I do think of the game, like, for example, against the Broncos, where he had no reason not to play well that night, and the Broncos defense held him in check. And there's been quite a few games, and maybe it is this injury, which has been lingering from the Jags game. Yeah.
I think the injury is probably more serious than they're even making out, Brian.
Yeah, but what can they do? They've got to roll the dice. What's the alternative? Is it Chase Daniel? That's the alternative.
Got to roll the dice and try and get to the wild card at this point, I would say. One team that is trying to get to the wild card, because sweet Jesus, Colin, if they get to the wild card, they're in with a serious chance of getting to Arizona in February, is the Miami Dolphins, because their offense on any given Sunday is unbelievable. When Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, River Craig. I mean, do I need to keep naming players? Basically, that is the best offense in the league when everyone is okay. They're going up against the Bears this week, who brought in Chase Claypool on the trade deadline. I haven't actually, and I haven't been on a broadcast with Brian anyway since the Bears Patriots situation. I think this on the last 2 Monday Night Footballs ago, and the Bears done excellent there. But the reality is, it's Chicago Bears, and I don't want to give my pick away yet. Shout out to everybody going to the big watch party in Barcelona. You flying over to that, Colin, this weekend? It's going to be muy importante. Shout out to El Coach as well. The game's in Chicago, Colin. Big game for Tua, trying to get back to full fitness after the concussion. You can see him, he's almost there. And this offense is ready to rock and roll. Who have you got in this game?
What I will say is Justin Fields, they finally leaned into. It took a season and a half. It took 2 coaches, but they're finally leaning into what he does well. One of the worst QBs in the league for the first 4 weeks. Over the past 4, he's been one of the best, and that has got to give the Bears hope. But the problem is everything else around him, particularly on the defense, and obviously losing two huge pieces in Roquan and Robert Quinn. So you've talked, Michael, and I would agree to a large extent in terms of like the explosiveness, certainly, of this offense. And Tua has proved, I think, people wrong. I saw a stat that said Tua is 36 of 50 on third down, 72%, almost 500 yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Passer rating of 142.7. It's the highest on third down through the first 8 weeks since they began tracking it in 1991. When you have the weapons that he has, and the explosiveness and the way in which that causes enormous concern to defenses, you would always fancy the Dolphins. I think for what the Bears would like is probably to score 25 points for Justin Fields and Chase Claypool to look great, and ultimately to lose the game to give them a higher pick in the draft. It's not about this season for the Bears. It's about building for the future. I think we're going to see second half of the season where they've found their franchise guy, but I have the Dolphins get the win here.
Yeah, I kind of have to admire the Bears. Luke Getsky, the offense coordinator, the last 2 weeks, they got the win in New England, but last week against the Cowboys, I mean, their offense played really well in the game. And they do have some explosive players there, and it'll probably be complemented now with Claypool coming in, and Colin was right. They're looking, like you can see now that they're trying to adjust the offense to suit the skill set of Justin Fields, which is good to see. It's a significant 8 or 9 games for the Bears leading up to the next year's draft, because the reality is the way they're going, they are going to be drafting high in the draft, and they'll have to make that decision whether they want to be looking at one of these quarterbacks next year, or essentially potentially be in a position where someone else will want to trade up. Was a little bit surprised that they went for Claypool. Bearing in mind what happened over the past week with the 2 players leaving, it looked like they were very much thinking ahead to next April on the draft. So to allow that one of those picks to go immediately, the second round pick for a wide receiver who, he was a hot commodity on the because of the trade week this week, but I don't think he's done enough in Pittsburgh. So I think the jury's still out on Claypool. Maybe it probably will turn out to be a good player and a good signing. I think for this game, it's going to be similar to last week. I think the Bears' offense will play quite well, but with the players and the constraints they have on defense, they're not going to live with this Dolphins team. Tua was 382 yards last week, 3 touchdowns. Hill 188 yards, Waddle 108 and 2 touchdowns. The only concern I can say is we've seen Tua go into adverse conditions and play poorly, where he's more comfortable in dome and nice weather. I'm not sure what the weather is going to be in Chicago on Sunday, but for me, I'm with Colin. I'm sure we're all going to be leaning the same way here. It's a Dolphins win for me.
Mark is picking the Dolphins. Michael is picking the Dolphins. Justin Fields done really well. Put up 29 against the Cowboys last week, and I know we'll get to speak about the Cowboys at some point. The really interesting thing in this game will be the pressure that the Bears put onto the Dolphins. Dolphins are sort of mid around the NFL in terms of their third down efficiency, so I just don't see there being an issue. I can't see the upset here. I can't see a situation where we're with 5 minutes to go and there's 7 to 10 points in the game. I think the Dolphins will pull away early and they'll win comfortably. And frankly, it's a game in which Miami needs to win to go to 6-3, and it's a game in which you need to win to continue to stay up in that AFC wildcard race, because they're not winning their division in the month of Sundays. So good luck to the Dolphins this weekend. Good luck to the Bears this weekend. It's a full house in that one. Some people have described this game column as a trap game of the week. The Panthers going to the Bengals. Bengals very, very poor on the run on Monday night. Obviously, I made a complete idiot of myself picking the Bengals and saying that the Browns didn't have a chance. I mean, for what it's worth, like, the Bengals didn't really show up. I mean, I don't really take this whole lack of Jamar Chase thing any more than what it should be. They've plenty of players there in the offense. I understand he's an excellent player, but you can't expect to rely on one player when you're Joe Burrow going for 400 yards the week before. You know, you've plenty of different players there, both on the run game and with wide receivers, tight ends. I don't buy it personally, and they're going to have an opportunity this week to go out against the Panthers and show what they're really worth. And that the offensive line as well is going to be interesting for the Panthers. I know you've talked, Colin, about PJ Walker this week, so it's an interesting game, especially if the Panthers get off to a decent start on Sunday.
Yeah, and particularly because the Panthers have a decent running game. I mean, even moving on from Christian McCaffrey, the backups have done a really good job, and the Bengals have really struggled against the run. So unless the Bengals get off to a hot start, then they could be in for a long afternoon. I know, Michael, you're saying like one player shouldn't make a difference, but he does, because he's that talented and he forces teams to double team him. Teams haven't yet figured out Jamar Chase. I talked about it on the show a few weeks ago, in terms of there might come to be a point where teams sort of figure out what to do, but I would back on him to be able to adjust to that. Talked about it in terms of Randy Moss. If you look at the way when Randy Moss first came into the league and that first season, no one had seen anything like him. It was insane. And then defenses adjusted and Randy Moss found a way to, well, be Randy Moss. I would back Jamar Chase to do that too. And I think the loss of him is enormous. Even if you have the talent around him, when he came into the team last year, it completely changed them. I think this is a big game for the Bengals in terms of they need to get things back on track, because they were just so bad and kind of inexplicably bad almost against the Browns. So that is a problem, and I think it's a real problem, because I think they don't match up particularly well against this Panthers team, because the Panthers are playing with house money, right? They've got an interim head coach. They're looking much better. They've already decided to move on from Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. The team looks very relaxed. If Jamar Chase was there, I would say, the Bengals probably would have beaten the Browns and would beat the Panthers. Without Jamar Chase, I can see the Panthers squeaking it. I think we're in the mid-season part where you can get some funny results before kind of you get teams really making a push. Like we saw the Bengals right the end of last year really get it together and make a real push. We've often seen teams do that, but that doesn't usually happen until kind of maybe week 11 or week 12, when teams suddenly really realize, we need to get this together and get the show on the road. I'm going to go with another upset in this. I'm going to say that the Panthers get a surprise win.
There you go. I'll strengthen Colum's case even more. The Bengals secondary, I don't know how I'm going to pronounce this one. I'll go with Ozuzi. Ozuzi's out for the season. He's their number one marquee secondary player. Trey Flowers is injured and not expected to play. Eli Apple is injured and not expected to play. The two corners on each side is going to be Taylor Britt and Daxton Hill, two rookies. They're going to lean into them. You've got DJ Moore, who has really come on in the last few weeks, and I'm sure he's got into it on Monday night about his catastrophe at the end of the game, but can't take away from a fabulous player that he is, and the play at the end was fantastic. They're going to give them some problems on Sunday. Colin talking about the Panthers run game. Dante Foreman, 118 yards in the last two games, 3 touchdowns last weekend. They've got the players, they've got the weapons to upset this Bengals team. A Bengals team which we were saying was getting their act together on the offensive line. Well, it resided back to what we were used to seeing last Monday night. It was really poor. God, I can see why Colin's going to Panthers, but I'm going to side with the Bengals. But I'm not comfortable about this pick. I think it'll be a really close one, and I could see why it could be a shock. But I think with Boyd, Higgins, Mixon getting more involved in the screen passes and passing game, that they'll just find a way to get over the line. But I'll go with the Bengals just.
Granted, Mark C is picking the Bengals. Granted, there's been a quarterback change or 2 or 4 in Carolina over the last few weeks. The Rams put up 24 points on them. The Rams, the worst offense statistically in the NFL at the minute, on numerous different metrics.
A lot of those points were late, Michael, late in the game.
Still put them up.
They held them on. Well, they held their own.
If my wife said to me, have dinner ready for 5, and I started at 10 to 5, and she didn't know it started at 10 to 5, it's still ready for 5. Do you know what I mean? She doesn't know any different. Niners, behind Christian McCaffrey, put up 37. I get what you're saying about last week, lads. I have the Bengals winning this game by 3 touchdowns. And I think the reason that is because they really struggled on the run last week, and they're going to find a way this week to get Joe Mixon into the game more. And I don't buy the Jamar Chase situation. You got T. Higgins, Hayden Hurst, Tyler Boyd. You find a way to win this game. You went to the bloody Super Bowl 8 months ago. Make it happen. The Panthers are in no way, shape or form ready to beat a team like this, and I'm not counting the game against the Bucs. It was an embarrassment. And we have to watch Tom Brady turn up in his pot noodle outfit next Sunday in Munich. First world problems. Mark is picking the Bengals. The next game that we're going to talk about. Sorry to all the Panther fans in Ireland. I know there's at least 15, and these are all good lads. Packers. This is going to be interesting. 3-5 Green Bay Packers against the 1-6 Detroit Lions. Colin, Aaron Rodgers. I feel like we're just saying this every week now. When are they going to wise up and actually get a receiver? Oh, that's right, the trade deadline passed on Tuesday. When are they going to wise up and get the ball down the field in an efficient sense? We're still waiting for it after that Giants game. They were standing in the presser saying they were going to change things, they were going to do things differently. They've lost 4 in a row. The Lions 1-6. Very, very disappointing for them. But, I think they need to sort of steady the ship there and see what they're getting. TJ Hawkins has went to the Vikings. I'm really intrigued to hear this pick from everybody. Bring it on.
I mean, look, I think if the Packers were potentially playing, most other teams this week, I'd go against them, because they have been incredibly disappointing. Again, nothing has worked for them. I saw Dan Orlovsky tweet maybe yesterday saying that they had the most first and second round draft picks on defense play the most number of snaps this season thus far, and the defense has been terrible. They haven't really come up clutch at any point, and all the talk in the offseason or the preseason was this was going to be the best defense that Aaron Rodgers had played with. They were going to be able to carry the lack of the wide receivers. They would allow the youngsters to get in because they'd be able to lean on the defense. But the issue is they're going up against a Lions team who, if we're talking about the Rams offense statistically being bad, the Lions defense, the worst in points per game, the worst in yards per game, the worst in yards per play, the worst in terms of allowing third down conversion. They are a shambles. Nothing has gone right for them. They're not the number 2 overall pick in the draft was Tron Armstead, one-handed, just holding him at bay. Nothing has gone right for the Lions. If the only thing is, if you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, happy days, because they traded away their tight end, and they again are looking towards next year. I think the Packers squeaked this, but this could be a worse than the Broncos versus the Colts.
Just another point to Colum's stats on how poor the Lions defense has been. It's been recognised this week because Dan Campbell has made 2 coaching changes with his defensive staff. He's finally seen enough of what's been going on in the field, and he's got rid of 2. And then Brad Holmes, the GM, comes out after the trade of Hawkinson and says, "If we were 6-1, we still would have done the deal." No, you're already thinking ahead to next season. You're already recognising the season's gone. Where are the bright spots for the Packers offense? Well, Dobbs is a good rookie, and he's done quite well so far. And Torre, the wide receiver who's got the touchdown on Sunday, has slowly started to emerge as someone who they didn't expect much from, 5th round pick. So there is some bright spots there. And yeah, it's been very inconsistent. They haven't lost 5 games in a row in 14 years. This is a blowout for me, actually. I think the Packers are going to finally find their feet offensively, and no better game against a very average and very poor Lions team defensively. It's an easy, comfortable win for the Packers to get themselves back to 4-5 and back in the hunt for a wild card, because there won't be a division this year.
They'd be lucky at the minute to get a wild card. They where the NFC's gone. Mark C is picking the Packers. I'm taking the Packers, and I'm taking under 24.5 points in this game. I think this game's going to be crap on Sunday.
In total?
That being said, yeah.
Okay.
I do. It's going to be crap. Aaron Rodgers can't get the ball down the field, man. He's nobody to throw it to, and he argues with all his wide receivers. All right, look, okay. Let me be more distinct. The Packers will score under 18.5 points on Sunday.
Well, then if that's the case, then they really are bad, because this Lions defense is shambles. Let's be honest.
The Lions offense, the Lions defense is a shambles, but the Lions offense could, Amon-Ra get a couple of touchdowns on Sunday. and it could turn into a whole shootout. I will put it this way, and we really need to jump on because we have another 8 games to talk about here. If they lose to the Lions on Sunday, LaFleur should be fired. GM should be fired. Somebody needs to go because they're done. If they lose to the Lions, I don't know what you're laughing about, lads. If they lose to that Lions team, a 1-6 Lions team, somebody needs to go. 100%. Do you think LaFleur's lasting the season if it goes at the minute?
Matt LaFleur had the greatest 3-season start to an NFL coaching career ever. Like they lost 9 games in 3. They're 13-3, 13-3, 13-3. Their issues certainly exist, and you can certainly ask questions of the organization. You could certainly ask questions of Aaron Rodgers. Michael, we talked about this last night. The reason Brady and the Patriots were so successful, he was willing to take the haircut. Now, people might say, hey, he had a supermodel wife who was earning hundreds of millions of dollars. Yes, absolutely. But it's the same as, every team finds out. Once you have a QB who earns top dollar, you have to cut down on everything else. Eventually that comes to bite you. But you can't get rid of Matt LaFleur for one bad year when essentially the GM and everyone else, an NFL head coach is not like a manager. You don't get a say in the personnel. You got to deal with the hand that's given you. I would say I would be looking seriously at their defensive coordinator because, as I said earlier, that's been the most disappointing unit in the entirety of the NFL. Somebody
needs to go this week. Whether it's a DC, OC, GM, somebody needs to go this week. If this is any other team in the AFC, if it was the Bills, like in this situation, forget about the record they've had the last 2 years. The situation which we've sat through crap in March and April about Aaron Rodgers throwing the toys out of the pram, both on Joe Rogan and the contract situation, and now he's fighting with his wide receivers and his tight ends. It's embarrassing. And the way they played in London, when they should have won the game, and they didn't deserve to win the game. Like the Giants' defense was excellent at the end. If you think of where that ball was and what's happened since in the last month, this is the shambles in Green Bay. They don't deserve to go to the playoffs as it stands. It's an absolute shambles, and somebody needs to genuinely pay for that. Whether that's this week, but I'm saying hypothetically, if they lose against the Lions, in the same way, if Hackett lost last week, I would say he'd need to go. There are teams at the minute that are on the edge, and I certainly think if they were to go the way, if they were to lose another 4 or 5 games this season, there would be serious questions asked of LaFleur at the end of the season. I think that's a very fair point to make, because that would mean they've lost 10 games in the season. Forget about the fact it's the Packers. Fans wouldn't accept that, so it's just one thing to say. And maybe we can talk about it whenever the Lions win 21-19 on Monday night and see. Maybe tell you what, if the Lions win, we'll open the show.
Can I make 2 quick points?
Yeah, go for it.
They shouldn't have won in London because they didn't score 1 point in the entirety of the second half. So
absolutely, it was a shambles, Brian. I mean, you lads were in the you lads were in the Giants presser, and LaFleur was
I understand that,
for next week.
Yeah. The second point I was going to make was if they lose this, they're 3-6, and if you come through the wild card situation now, and now we're talking wild cards and it's only week 9, but the team who has four defeats is in the 7th spot, which I believe is the 49ers at 4-4. So there'll still only be 2 games out of a wild card, and I know it's probably what's on paper and what's actually happening in front of us on the field is very different, because the reality is they'll have to run the table at some stage to get in with an opportunity for a wild card. But it's too early to be dismissing playoff chances, I believe. They've still got some great talent there, but it has to start soon, and it has to start Sunday. I'm not sure who they play the following week. Maybe someone knows or someone can check that out. But this is the week they have to get it going. I believe they will. But you're right. I can see why the pressure will continue to ramp up on the coaching staff if they don't get a win.
Good discussion. Now I'm going to.
I'm old enough to remember Manchester United finishing 3rd twice in a row under Alex Ferguson after all the success, and people questioning. I don't think Matt LaFleur is.
What success has Matt LaFleur had? What's Matt LaFleur won?
Michael. He's there 3 years. 3 years.
36 months.
3 championship. Sorry, 2 championship games.
And how many of them did they win? Lads, I started uni the year they won the Super Bowl last night. I'm now 31, married 4 years, and the same quarterback's there. So let's,
Oh, we can have it. We can have an Aaron Rodgers discussion. Absolutely. Let's have a discussion about QBs undermining themselves and undermining their teams by demanding supermax contracts.
They play the Cowboys next week.
Time.
They play the Cowboys next week.
God help them.
If they don't win this game.
Right. Well, it's a must-win game because they're going to go 3-7. And that's crap because we're going to miss that game next week. Right. Anyway, Colin, not to get you fired up, but we're going to talk about the Raiders and the Jags next. We seen Trevor Lawrence play in person last week. If he continues to play like this over the course of a season, would you consider him to be in the conversation of being a bust? Because I got a text last week going, Trevor Lawrence is not helping himself. And I have to say, to be at the 1 yard line last week and to throw that pass, me or Brian could have tagged up high and just done that. I mean, that was atrocious.
Well, it was an awful play call.
Yes.
Like that is run the ball, and even on fourth down, run the ball. It was insane. I don't know why they threw the ball. That it was stupid. Now it was a poorly executed play. Don't get me wrong, but they should never have been throwing it. These are two really disappointing teams. And in terms of Trevor Lawrence, Michael, I would say you have to give the guy 3 years, but he has underwhelmed. And I think that what's really concerning for the Jags is particularly the red zone play. Where he has really, really struggled. At times he has moved it, but he hasn't had. I don't remember. And I'm sure there are Jags fans will say, "Hey, I remember the games," but I don't remember a game where he had 4 quarters together that were wow. He has absolutely had quarters where he's looked great. He's had halves where he's looked great, but I haven't seen a game where he's translated what he did in college. So yeah, it definitely has disappointed. The Raiders have disappointed massively. I think you can make a case for both of these teams winning it, but the most consistent player on both of these rosters is the Raiders kicker, Daniel Carlson, who is one of just 2 kickers in the NFL this year to be 100% when attempting 10 or more field goals. I think he is probably going to be the difference in this game. I have the Raiders just about winning it.
Brian, are you still picking the Raiders for the West, or I'm still picking the Chargers?
I'm not picking. I never picked them for the West in the first place, Michael. I picked them for a wild card. I didn't pick them to win the division.
There's more chance of you going on late toy show than there is of the Raiders getting.
Yeah, well, but that can happen as well. I think I've got a couple of spare tickets.
I've applied. I actually applied this year for tickets. Don't tell the wife. I haven't heard back yet. So if anyone is watching from Radio Television, hook your boy up.
Well, it'll be more entertaining than this game. The reality.
Well, it will be a toy show on Sunday. Well, it'll be a joke. They did score a point last week.
The Trevor Lawrence thing, it's easy to say, oh, it's the head coaches causing the problems. But genuinely, you haven't watched the Jags the past 2 weeks because they played the Giants and played the Broncos last Sunday. It is the head coach causing the problem. Like Travis Etienne ran for 156 yards last week. The Broncos couldn't stop him throughout the course of the game. The Giants couldn't stop him the week before that. That's how electric he is. We're finally seeing, he was out last year, we're finally seeing why he was selected so highly coming out of Clemson. And that drive was marred by poor play calling, in my opinion, yeah. But the play, as I said, it wasn't executed correctly either by Lawrence. But Lawrence is just too inconsistent. And there's times where they should lean on the running game a little bit more. They don't. But the Raiders are an absolute. Is it a shit show? Should we say that? Are we beyond the threshold to say things like that? Like last week,
people are going to be listening at 6 a.m. the way to work, Brian, and I think.
Well, then I apologise.
Okay,
I'll apologise. It's very difficult. I can imagine being a Raiders fan to understand what's going on because they go to the Chiefs, they score 29 points, they go for 2-point conversion to win the game, as opposed to taking overtime. The following week, they put up a huge points on Texans. They took to go on the bye, they played the Texans, then they played last week, and you have Derek Carr having 7 drives where he doesn't go beyond the 50-yard line. Worst game of his career. He throws for 101 yards. Devontae Adams catches 1 reception for 3 yards in the game. They then stay in Florida for the week. They don't go back to Vegas. They stay in Florida because they want to get used to the heat and get ready for this game. It's a strange one because the Jags have played 6 games now where they've been defeated by one score. They haven't won one of those games. So when it's a close game, you can lean against the other team. Josh Allen hasn't had a sack for 4 games in a row, which probably kind of led into why people felt he might have got traded this week, because he just hasn't shown the production what we've seen over the past couple of years since he came into the league. I'm going to go Jags. I think the Jags might find a way this week. With Etienne, I don't think the Raiders have struggled against the run game. I think maybe they'll recognise this week Etienne is the key player and not Lawrence, and just lean on him time and time. What works, don't change it, stick with him, and you might get over the line, but it's a difficult to call. I can understand why. Colin will go with the Raiders. I'll lean Jags.
Mark is going with the Raiders. Marksy, do you ditch Marksy? I'd like to thank Shad Khan for the wonderful scarf that we were presented with last week. It's never leaving that desk anyway, that's for sure. Thank you for the wonderful letter, Shad. It means so much. And there were so many Jaguars fans in London last week, Colin, wasn't there? Sorry, I had a bit of crack in my neck.
Some people were apparently counted more Jags jerseys on the tube than Broncos jerseys, but maybe they got lost on the way to the stadium.
Are you shouting Will Galvin out live? He's probably not watching, so it's fine. Hi, Will. Yes. I think they've definitely suffered with COVID, that fan group in the UK. I really do think that, because there was way more orange hair last week. Anyway, who cares about that? We're talking about this game this week. Josh McDaniels. Oh, dearie me. Oh, dearie me. Al Davis saying he is looking forward to having him as a head coach for years to come. Please, keep her lit, Al. Keep her lit. Sweet Jesus. To not score a point last week is embarrassing. And the Jags are winning this game on Sunday. They'll run. They'll find a way. Christian Kirk will get a touchdown. And they'll win by 3 points. But we will then have to start having a discussion, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks' time, about the Raiders and about the huge contract that was handed out to Devontae Adams, about that big move. The defense, I mean, outside of Max Crosby, who's performing, Derek Carr, where's he playing? I mean, we have to have these discussions, and I'm sure we will, but very, very poor so far this season, and frankly, very surprisingly poor. Another team that's been very, very poor is the 3-4-1 Indianapolis Colts, who replaced their quarterback 2 weeks ago, or last week, going to New England to play the Patriots 4-4. Colin, I am picking the Patriots in this game. Who are you picking?
I think the question for the Colts might be how much do they miss Nick Sirianni? Because they have not looked like the same team since Nick headed off to the Eagles. And obviously, big moves this week. You mentioned, Michael, the new QB, the OC being fired. It's interesting because Stephen Holder obviously is a guy who's covered the team for a long time. And he's been shocked repeatedly this year. They're not gonna make this move, and then they do make that move. A few weeks ago, we don't need to have a discussion about Matt Ryan, and then they move on from Matt Ryan. They're not going to move on from the OC. Well, they have, and I think a lot of that is because just it hasn't worked, and Frank Reich is trying to save his job. Jonathan Taylor, from what I understand, is not going to play in this game because he's out injured again. While the Patriots haven't been super impressive, Bill Belichick enjoys playing against rookie QBs, making their lives difficult, and I think the Patriots will have enough to get the victory.
You left another one out there, Colin. They're not going to trade Nadeem Hines. They trade Nadeem Hines. So, look, I'm with Colin and yourself, Michael. I do expect the Patriots to win. The Patriots have the most takeaways in the league this season of all defenses, 16 from 8 games. 3 last week against the Jets, offense which struggled, and Zach Wilson struggled, and they're going to play Sam Erdinger, who didn't really do a lot last Sunday against a strong Washington defense. Mac Jones had a steady game last week, 24 for 35, 194 and touchdown. Stevenson is now the marquee player, both rushing and receiving. He's had really efficient games. I think this is a slow burner. Not a great game. It won't be a high scoring game, but I think the Patriots will ease a victory out.
Mac Jones is like a packet of Coca noodles. It's not quite super noodles, but it's not like Tesco value noodles. And that's all I'm going to say about Mac Jones. And I again, We're all being
some people
proven
are
right.
more than happy with that.
We are all being proven right because I called him out at the start of the season and he's been pretty average, pretty bang bloody average so far this season. Mark is picking the Colts on Sunday. No, he's not. He's picking the Patriots. There's more chance of the Primark building in Belfast or Penny's building in Belfast closing down again than there is with Mark not picking the Patriots. Apparently it's really busy in Belfast. Maybe we could do a show from there at some point, lads. That would be nice if you want to drive up here at some point this year. Bills 6-1, Jets 5-3. Column Zach Wilson last week had 352 yards or 355 yards passing, 2 touchdowns but 3 interceptions, and that it sort of took away from the game for him because outside of the interceptions, 20 of 41 completions. It's sad that I actually remember that, isn't it? Like, this is how my life is getting to now. If he can just find a way to just be better, don't throw so many picks. I'd be more confident in the play. They actually might have a decent team, but the reality is, it's the Jets. The Jets really were up for this game last week against the Patriots. They lose, and now they're going up against the Bills. And I'm just going to jump in right now and say that the Bills are scoring over 40 points in this game, and New Jersey will be half empty by halftime. And I look very much forward to it, seeing the shenanigans from Bills Mafia. 41-10 final. What about you, Colin?
I really like a lot of what the Jets have done outside of the QB, but as I've said with others, I think you have to give him the 3 years. But the concern with Wilson is it's a lot of the same issues, and his time to throw has actually increased this year. That is one of the things that you usually see decrease. Rookies come in, they hold it too long because they're not used to the game, but it usually speeds up. And you've seen that, with Justin Fields. For Wilson, there are things that he does very well, but under pressure, he falls to pieces. I think Daniel Jeremiah in ways put it really well. He tweeted, Zach Wilson is spending 80% of his time trying to create and 20% of his time being a distributor. That needs to flip for him to find some consistency and success. And I think that's it. He's trying too hard. He has really good players there. Obviously, losing Breece Hall is going to impact on them throughout the season because he was just so dynamic. But they still have a lot of good players there. He's just trying. For me, he's trying the Hollywood ball. He's trying the spectacular all too frequently, trying to get the killer pass all the time instead of dumping it off, living to fight another day. I don't know if the Bills will put 40 up because I like the Jets defense, but I do believe the Bills will win this game, and it'll be interesting to see if the changes that the Bills made at running back will lead to greater success on the ground.
Brian, Mark is picking the Bills.
Yeah, it doesn't come as a surprise. I'm going to pick the Bills as well. The intriguing battle for me in this game, we've spoke to Conor Rogers there a couple of weeks back, and he was speaking so highly of Sauce Gardner, and everybody's been very excited to see what he's doing so far. He's going to go up against Stephon Diggs on Sunday. That's an intriguing battle in this game. It'd be interesting to see how well he can do against a marquee wide receiver like that. Maybe the more interesting side and more fruitful side of the game might come on the other side, where Gabe Davis will go up against DJ Reed, and we've seen where teams focus so much on Stephon Diggs that Gabe Davis usually is the marquee breakout player. Look, the Bills have only punted 11 times this season. That says it all. They seem to be able to score at will. I don't think they'll score at will against this Jets defense. I think just Jets defense will find a way to slow them down, but I still don't think. And it's Zach Wilson. Like, the games in which they were winning, a lot of it was down to the fact that don't bend it and don't break, don't do anything silly, and we'll find a way to win on defense. And when he does do something silly, inevitably they lose. I'd say 27-10, Bills, comfortable win for the Bills.
A Bills Eagles or Bills Cowboys Super Bowl means none of us are getting in. You all realise that, yeah? We haven't a chance in hell of getting into that game, and it looks very likely at the minute. Okay, Bills best team in football, lads, at the minute. Great to watch. And, the fact that the handicap last week was 12.5 or 11.5 against the Packers, and we're going, they might get that, they might not get that. and they struggled in the second half, and they still won the game by 10 points. I think that says a lot about the Bills. It's incredible. Quick fire round, just one game we're going to go for quick fire this week, and that is the Vikings against the Commanders. Colin, I'm picking the Vikings.
Vikings.
3 weeks ago, comeback game for Ron Rivera going into Chicago. He won. 2 weeks ago, it was the Tyler Heineke comeback game against the Packers. He won. Last week, it was the Terry McLaurin comeback game because he's from Indianapolis. They won. This week, it's Kirk Cousins coming back into Washington and Kevin O'Connell coming back into Washington. Commanders' defense hasn't given up more than 21 points in the last 4 games. They've rebounded to what I thought we were going to see against the Eagles. Commanders upset the Vikings on Sunday. And they win 4 in a row.
It took 8 games in for the. It took 8 games in for the big pick.
And then they win
Mark
4 in a row.
The
and they go 5-4, and they'll be the 7th seed. And every team in the NFC East will be in the playoffs if the season ended on Sunday.
Oh, could you imagine the Giants Commanders wildcard game? I genuinely would rather take the TV in front of the.
We wouldn't be because wildcard can't play wildcard. So.
Well,
unless
not a wildcard game, but it's been a long week.
Anyway, there you go. Commanders to upset the Vikings on Sunday.
Okay. Gino, Kyler, Modern Warfare 3 or whatever the new Call of Duty is called. I got it this week. It's not great, lads, to be fair. It takes ages to install as well. I guess I could ask Kyler that. Call him. I can't find his gamer tag anywhere. If it's like him, if I'm like him, I mean, I spent 2 or 3 hours in the first multiplayer mode, so I can only imagine how busy he's been this week. If you want to add me, at MichaelMCQU. I lost the first account. It was at MichaelMCQ on the PS5. Colin, what's your PSN username?
I don't play online.
Yeah.
I play the single player, playing a really interesting survival game at the moment. But one team who is not survival and not busy playing Call of Duty, but busy collecting awards is the Seattle Seahawks, who have...
You could say Geno Smith's been a bit tortured in the past, Colin, with some people thinking he's... He
was indeed in the past, but not anymore. Offensive Player of the Month for October. They also have the Offensive Rookie of the Month for October in Kenneth Walker, and the Defensive Rookie of the Month, Tariq Woolen. Safe to say, the Seahawks had themselves an October. They were fantastic. Gino continues to be really, really impressive. He has matured. Anytime you hear him speak, he's really impressive. Praises his teammates constantly, and that defense has gotten better after a really kind of poor start. They've tightened it up, and this is a Cards team who have run teams close, but just haven't been able to find ways to win. And we've talked about it before. A lot of that, the fact that they've been closing games, has been individual moments of magic. A lot of that from Kyler Murray. DeAndre Hopkins is back and he looks fantastic. But what is their identity? This is the issue, I think, for the Cardinals. Like, what is the offensive identity? What is the defensive identity? I think that is the biggest issue for them. The Seahawks know who they are and what they're about. And for that reason, I am going to say the Seahawks and Geno Smith get another victory, but it'll be close.
Brian, Mark C is picking the Seahawks.
91% of the 91% of the time in which the Cardinals have been on the field this season, they have been losing. They seem to find a way to get themselves behind early and then just can't seem to get themselves back in. You saw it last week, played reasonably well against the Vikings, but they were down too much. They found it very difficult to get back. We've seen it in other games. Same against the Seahawks when they went into Seattle. They gave up on field goals and continuously went for 4th downs, which drives me bonkers because it was a field goal type of game. They gave up on 3 field goals, which would have been 19-18, and potentially who knows what would happen. Cliff Kingsbury came out this week and said, we're only a couple of plays away from being the best offense in the league. Something to that extent. I don't know why he's watching because they're so off And D-Hop has come back, and in fairness to D-Hop, he's come back 262 yards already, 1 touchdown. You can see why there'll be a bit of an upward turn in the offense, and we certainly saw it for, a proportion of the game last week against the Vikings. But right now, Pete Carroll, for me, is, he's up there for coach of the league as well. Whilst he beat the Giants last week, one piece I really thought was really great was, I don't know if you saw the moment when he went over to Tyler Lockett because he had such a poor game. He dropped a number of passes and then he had the fumble where he gave the ball away at the 3-yard line. And he still ended up catching a touchdown towards the end of the game. But during the game, he went up to him, put his arm around him and just said, look, your time will come. That's, you can see this team are rallying around the coach, and that's been coming since the off-season. And I'm not surprised because I did feel that there would be a lot of shocks for this Seahawks team this year. I certainly think they'll win on Sunday and go to 6-3. And we thought there'd be one team potentially at 6-3 going to Munich. We certainly didn't think it'd be the Seahawks going into play the Bucs next week. 6-3, Seahawks win on Sunday.
Mr. Connolly, with my employer, has been talking about all these enhanced stats, and I can't remember the word that Ollie used earlier on, and I am saying this for a reason. Apparently Geno Smith is like top 5 or something in the league in all these enhanced stats, so
I think he's
he
second,
must be doing something right.
I think he's second in all these.
Second. I mean, I should know this, and I just watched tape. I mean, Geno's been really, really impressive. The thing about the Cardinals, and you lads have said it, is they don't finish, and they're so inconsistent. And also, they got Cliff Kingsbury as the head coach, and I mean, that's a whole different conversation to be had there. For some reason, I have the Cardinals winning this game on Sunday, and I just feel that their offense is going to turn it on a bit. And I do think the Seahawks are going to have a few down weeks, and I feel that they'll lose this week. I think they'll win in Munich next week. Even though the NFL will probably want Brady to win, I think the Bucs will go into Munich 3-6, which is sad because Tom Brady should have walked away in January, or in 2020, or in 2017, or in 2016. Why not? I'll take the Cardinals. They're like -2 in the handicap. Close game, bit of crack, and Geno to have an off day. How's that? Yeah. Everybody else going with Seahawks, yeah.
What I would say, Michael, in fairness, the first game in Seattle, like the Cardinals defense put up a great game that day. They held Seattle in check. They only gave up 19 points. They only gave up 1 touchdown in throughout the course of that game. The Cardinals defense hasn't been the problem for large parts of the season. It has been the offense. If that defense plays in a similar manner to how they played in Seattle, I can see why the Cards could win the game. But I'm sticking with the hot hand right now. They're going for 4 in a row.
Sticking with a hot hand. Let's talk about another hot hand. Let's talk about an old man. Not Brian, not Mark, not Colin, not me. I'm in my 30s, to be fair. Let's talk about Tom Brady. I'm joking, lads. Tom Brady and the Bucs are 3-5, and the Rams are 3-4. Colin, I've already gave away my pick. The Rams' offense has been shocking this year, and they can't really get a run game together. And Cam Akers, is he here? Is he there? He could be sitting in Oma for all we know, having a few slugs, but it's one of those things. This is a really, really important game for both teams. They need to win on Sunday. Sean McVay really needs to win. I have to say, I am sick of this whole retirement talk. Walk away. If you don't want to do it, walk away. And that goes for anything in life. The man is so young, and he's won the Super Bowl. But to be in his job, some people would kill to be in his job. And all this crap about walking away. Grand, walk away. Are you scared, Sean? Can you not win it again? Like I like Sean McVay. I'm just sick of all this talk. Brady is washed. I haven't been on the show in 2 weeks. In my defense here, all right. Brady's washed. He's divorced. He is playing statistically average enough. It's not his fault that the people around him aren't. But an enhanced version of Tom Brady means, or a lack of an enhanced version of Tom Brady means that they can't get the ball down the field. And Colin, outside of the Chiefs game where he scored 3 touchdowns, passing touchdowns, they've been absolute cowplop. So I just don't see how the Bucs win this game on Sunday. I am taking the Rams, and I'm going to fire in Mark's. Do we want to guess who Mark picked?
I imagine the Mark went with the Bucs, shall we say.
Mark is going with the 46-year-old man living Mark's life/dream, Tom Brady and the Bucs. Colin, I would say that the main thing that the Bucs have in their favour this week, in all seriousness, is the location of this game. Obviously, being in Tampa Bay. What's your thoughts on this game?
Both of these teams, I think, are very similar because, yeah, in Tom Brady, you have all the retirement talk. You've mentioned the retirement talk that surrounds Sean McVay. I don't think that helps either team. When you're quarterback, you're wondering how committed is he. When you're head coach, you're wondering how committed is he. Especially when you hear he's going to retire when the core group. I mean, we already know about the stars and scrubs, but my goodness, that makes it, even like if you're anyone outside of that core group, you just thinking, does McVay value me in any way, shape, or form? So I think that was or is an issue for the Rams. The other issue for the Rams is that their offensive line right now is LT2, LG2, the C3, RG5, RT1. That is a huge issue, and that is one of the reasons why Matthew Stafford has been getting sacked the number of times that he has. This is a world away from when these two teams met in the playoffs last year, and they were both high octane. And it was turned out to be a moment of magic from Cooper Kupp that ultimately managed to get the Rams over the line. Yeah, I really think this is a coin toss game because both of these teams are struggling at the moment, and it's difficult to see. I think the Bucs will make changes to the running game because that has been abysmal. However, Brady's been average, but the Bucs run game has been absolutely non-existent. That is something that they have to change. I'm gonna say home advantage means the Bucs win, but I definitely could see the Rams winning it.
Brian, I'm taking the Rams. Mark is taking the Bucs. Who have you got?
Well, you touched on Cam Akers, which is a very unusual story. A lot of talk that he would be traded. A lot of talk that he'd be released. Now he's back practicing and with a view to playing on Sunday. So essentially they've recognised that they've no run game. They're not getting enough from Henderson and the other guys. They're going to have to bring Akers back no matter what the difference is him and McVay have had. So, and when he plays and he's on his game, he is a reasonably good running back and can help this team to alleviate the pressure on Matthew Stafford. When the column started calling out the RT2 and the RT3, I thought he was calling out Irish TV channels there for a few minutes when he went off the grid there with his the casualties in which this offensive line has had and the casualties in which this Bucs offensive line has had. And I think ultimately you're asking me which front seven I trust more to get to the quarterback, and that's the Rams front seven, despite the frailties in which they've shown this season as well. So I'm going to go with the Rams to win a scrappy one on Sunday as well, and put Brady right in the more 3-6 going into Munich next week.
Yeah, really disappointing about the whole Brady situation. I've had not to blow a trumpet in the fesh or tin whistle or something here, lads, but loads of people are messaging me about Munich and stuff, and they haven't got tickets. Looking to say hello. I'm over there from Wednesday. Brian's over on Saturday. Colin is yet to be persuaded, so do give us a shout next week. I think even if Brady and the Bucs do go over 3-6, it's still a monumental game. It's a huge moment. It's just funny that Geno Smith isn't getting any respect. They're still advertising it's like a Tyler Lockett, Tom Brady game. I'm very much looking forward to it. Let's jump on the last game of this game week before Monday Night Football, which we'll look at on Monday. That is the Titans going to the Chiefs. Now, Colin, at the time of recording, now this is why I went with this earlier on with the not sponsored Vit Hit Klaxon. Our picks are in, so we're not changing them at all. Malik Willis is starting for the Titans as it stands, yeah?
I believe that to be the case.
The current handicap column with Malik Willis, and I know you're not a betting man, but the current handicap with Malik Willis, and it shows you the difference in opinions, is 12.5. So the Titans are expected to potentially lose considerably without Ryan Tannehill there, which would be interesting to say the least, because they still got Derrick Henry, haven't they?
Yes, who has been an enormous problem for this Chiefs team. The thing about this is what makes it so interesting, is that the Chiefs have been favourites for the past 4 games against the Titans. 2 of which have been at Arrowhead. And yet, since 2014, the Titans are 4-0 against Andy Reid and the Chiefs. This is and the Andy Reid and the Chiefs, who the Broncos simply can't beat. But whatever kind of hex the Titans have over him, he just can't seem to find a way, and that is down to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry averages more than 100 yards, more than 110 yards a game against them. He averages more than 5 yards a touch, and I think he will be a real problem. If you're the Chiefs, I suppose what's going to give you hope is that you are coming off the bye, and over the course of his stellar NFL career, Andy Reid is 20-3 coming off the bye. His teams are phenomenal coming off the bye. Kadarius Toney obviously joined, and I know your boss was writing about him earlier in the week, Michael. I think it's absolutely worth a roll of the dice. I can see why Dable moved him on, because he's trying to change the culture with the Giants. But I can see why the Chiefs decided to take a chance, because they have such a good culture there that it doesn't matter. Even if Tony doesn't get it together, they'll just move him on, right? Or he's going to have to get it together, because Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have such a hold over that locker room. And look, that game against the Cowboys, everyone will look to that. That shows, I think, what he can do. And if he can perform like that occasionally for the Chiefs, that will be enough. This, we look around the league, we talk about giving your QB a weapon and how it has improved Tua, how it has improved Jalen Hurts. We talk about how Aaron Rodgers lost Devonta Adams. But Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, the separation has worked for both. Tyreek Hill is on course for 2,000 yards, and Patrick Mahomes hasn't missed a beat. If Ryan Tannehill was in there, I would give the Titans a chance, because the curse that they have. But with Willis starting, very likely. I said earlier that the Falcons would break the curse of playing the Panthers. I'm going to say that the Chiefs managed to break the curse as well, and that Andy Reid gets the victory over Mike Vrabel and the Titans.
Brian Mark is picking the Chiefs to win. It's notable because we didn't get a chance to chat to you about the whole betting angle this week about the handicap on 12.5. That's a very, very high handicap of a team that's sitting 5-2. And I actually had to check the Titans' record when I went into this, because a lot of people aren't talking about them, but they're 5-2 in the AFC at the minute. Granted, the division that they're in, and nobody really expected the Colts to fall off so much, but they're still not doing too bad.
They're not, but they're not they're not overly impressive. They're probably, we've seen Titans teams that have done really well, and even with Tannehill, the offense has been explosive, but they've never really recovered offensively this season from AJ Brown being traded. Derrick Henry was a bit stop-start. He had a really good game last week against, let's just say, an average Texans side. And Michael, you always asked the question around whether a quarterback is ready to play in this league. Well, anybody who watched that game last week can clearly see Malik Willis is not ready to play in the NFL league. He threw the ball once in the second half. Now, whether they were using the run game because the game was comfortable, to have your quarterback only throw the ball once. We spoke last year about the Mac Jones and the 4 throws in New England on Monday night, and we all had a very controversial conversation around whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. To have a quarterback coming in his first game and only throw the ball once shows where the level of the expectation is. 12.5 to me is a fair number, to be honest, bearing in mind how well the Chiefs have played recently. If he's the quarterback, and even if Tannehill was the quarterback, I still don't see the Titans finding a way to win this game. I think the Chiefs are a hot team. They're up there with Buffalo for a reason. In terms of potentially seeing each other again in the championship game. Sunday night football, coming back off a bye. No, and Tannehill didn't practice today, so it is likely the outcome will be we see Willis again on Sunday. I could see a Julian Love type game last year where they couldn't do very much, and the Chiefs found a way to ease to a comfortable win. Chiefs all day for me.
Even if the even if the Titans don't have Tannehill starting on Sunday at the time of recording, hashtag no pick changing,
I wouldn't
taking the
change
Chiefs
it.
to win.
I wouldn't change it anyway. No way. Even with Tannehill. Tannehill hasn't played well this season either. So I'd bear that in mind as well. It's not like he's been, hit the ground running and we're looking at lights out performances and we're saying, oh my God, it's a shame he's not playing. He hasn't done.
Yeah, he's only had 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And 3 interceptions so far this season. 65 I think % completion rate, which again shows you how sad my life is. I can recite that, which is embarrassing. I think the spread's disrespectful when you got Derrick Henry there. I have the Chiefs winning. I've got the Titans covering the spread at 12 or 12.5. Please gamble responsibly. But I would say that the Chiefs will win by a touchdown. Don't be surprised if this game does go tight, does go close. We're still waiting for that. I know the Chiefs had a tight enough game against the Chargers. I can see this game being a bit tighter than what we're used to, but we'll see. And that is us. That's it. That's lads. That's it over. There's nothing else to talk about. Literally, we can talk
there
about
you go. The NBC asked a question earlier on Twitter that is worth talking about. Is Matty Ice a future Hall of Famer? Michael, yes or no?
He has more passing yards, I think, than Dan Marino and Eli Manning, who's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, who's in the Hall of Fame. But he's more passing yards than Eli Manning. And rest in peace to Tom Coughlin's wife as well. I haven't got a chance to say that all week on different podcasts. Yeah, he is absolutely. He's been a great servant to the league, and based upon the certain people that are letting into the Hall of Fame now, he gets in no problem whatsoever.
Brian?
Not for me. Will he get in? Probably, because as Michael has said, they seem to be throwing a few people in there that I never would have thought.
How many Super Bowls, Brian, has Dan Marino won?
0.
And how many has Eli Manning won?
2.
And are they both in the Hall of Fame?
Not yet.
Eli's
Is Eli not in yet? Why do I think Eli? I mean, that's controversial. Is this the first year of Eli's eligibility this year or next year?
I think it's next year.
Next year. That'll be interesting. He'll get in first time because he's a Manning.
Him and Big Ben would rock in together, wouldn't they?
Well, DeMarcus Ware didn't get DeMarcus Ware. Like in terms of like his career was 90% with the Cowboys. He should he should have get in first time, and he didn't. He'll get in next year. The Hall of Fame, I don't know. I mean, hopefully we get to go to Canton in August and see it for ourselves. But for me, Matt Ryan is definitely a Hall of Famer. He might not get in for a few years, but he is definitely worthy of the Hall of Fame. And it's funny that we're talking about Matt Ryan in the past tense, and he's still an active quarterback in the NFL. Right, we're back Monday night.
Two very quick things. Also, condolences, obviously, to the Zimmer family, and to all the Vikings fans. And in terms of tonight's game, obviously the Eagles going up, and just to highlight to Brian and to listeners that Jalen Hurts currently has more passing yards, more passing touchdowns, more rushing yards, and more rushing touchdowns than Cam Newton had in his MVP season through the first 7 games. So
we are all meeting Christmas Eve.
See.
It is a big.
We are all meeting. We are all meeting on Christmas Eve for this Cowboys Giants game, and we're going to live stream it.
It's going to be a big
laughing,
one,
and I'm being. I genuinely, the NFL have put on a cracker on Christmas Eve. That's going to be a hell of a game because I genuinely think the Eagles are going to be unbeaten going into that game. And sweet
11th
Jesus.
of December, Michael. 11th of December, we played the Eagles.
Why did I think it was Christmas Eve?
They played during New Year's Day, I believe. Maybe. No, sorry, they played during
No, I'm nearly certain it's Christmas Eve.
No, and we played the Vikings on Christmas Eve.
Who's we?
The Giants.
I'm talking about the Cowboys and I'm talking about the top 2 teams in the NFC. Jesus Christ, Brian.
They won't be unbeaten by then. We just stop it. That'll be sorted out quick before then. Big game tonight, midnight. Houston and Philadelphia. Zerlin are at the against Game 5 of the World Series.
You're some buckle high, aren't you? Jesus. Right. Anyway. Back on Monday, 9:30. Keep her lit. Up Tyrone. Have a great night, folks. Enjoy
9 o'clock Monday.
9 o'clock Monday. If you're an Astros fan, enjoy yourself. If you're an Eagles fan, enjoy yourself. If you're a Phillies fan, what a weird name for a team. See you on Monday. Have a good one, Texans fans.
Fanatic is the best mascot in sports.